Hello, everybody. I am here talking with playwright Bradley Walton. Hello, Bradley.
Hi,
All
Lindsay.
right, now we are talking about this is one of my favorite titles, and I'm going to make sure that I get it right. It is The Baloney, The Pickle, The Zombies, and Other Things I Hide from My Mother. Now, that is a title that tells it all, that you know exactly what kind of play you're going to get. You know what is going to be in the play. We've got some baloney, we've got some pickles, we've got some zombies, and I just love the description of this play. So we have our main character, Trevor, who is in the basement experimenting. He wants to build an army of zombies, actually a labor force of zombies, and he starts by bringing baloney to life. Will his plan work before the expiry date? Now, we've got this amazing title. Let's talk about the play. Bradley, what was your starting point for this play? I actually think it was you holding a piece of baloney, but I could be mistaken. Tell me about the starting.
It was one night many years ago. I am in the kitchen getting a piece of bologna out of the refrigerator. My daughter walks into the room. She was much younger then than she is now. And she says, "What are you doing with the bologna, Daddy?" And I wasn't immediately sure how to respond to the question. My first impulse was to tell her I was sticking it up my nose. What am I doing with the bologna if I'm not getting a snack, if I'm not eating the bologna? And it really got my brain going. What are you doing with the bologna? And you're getting the bologna out of the fridge and you're not eating the bologna. Making zombies. What else? Why not? Sure, baloney, zombies, why not? And then the further extension of that question, what are you doing with the baloney? It almost implied that you and the baloney are doing something together. It's not that you are using the baloney as an object. It's as if you're interacting with the baloney and it's interacting back with you and you're going to see a movie together or something like that. What are you doing with the baloney? Oh, we're going to see a movie. And so those were the two things that kind of gelled together that kicked this play going when I started writing it. And so we have a teenage mad scientist who create zombies that he can sell for cheap labor. But he's too squeamish and just he's not going to go off into a graveyard and dig up corpses to bring to life. It's just he's not there yet. So he's going to do the next best thing. He's going to experiment with the meat in his refrigerator. And so he brings to life a piece of bologna. And he's hiding the bologna in the basement from his mother and from his little sister. And so late at night, him and the bologna are getting together in the kitchen, plotting their next move, while hiding from the mother and the little sister. And so that's where we get rolling with this play.
I'm literally sitting here and I'm just like, and I've read this play many, many times. And you're describing the things that are happening. And I'm like, you can't laugh, don't laugh, because you'll ruin this. But I do find this to be such a funny play. And it's very simple in its humor in that Baloney is a character. We have personification of Baloney. There's a walking, talking character of Baloney who actually turns out to be smarter than his creator, which I think is a great tactic to have this character who actually, and I actually, when you talked about making an army or about Trevor being a mad scientist, I actually think the Baloney says at one point, you may be a genius, but you're no mad scientist. And I love the idea that it's not an army of zombies, it's a labor force of zombies. Okay, so what's your, I'm just sitting here talking about favorite moments for me, but what is the favorite moment of this play for you? What's the moment that that makes you smile the most?
Well, really just the beginning of the play, where we have a piece of bologna walking onto the stage. I mean, that's a make or break moment for the audience. I mean, okay, I guess maybe the title is a make or break moment for the audience as well. I mean, they may be going to see the play regardless if they have a kid or a friend who's in it. And so they maybe have some clue as to the baloney, the pickle, the zombies. Okay, something weird's up here. But the play opens. And I don't know, I like to think of maybe somebody seeing this thing at a play festival who hasn't looked at their program and they're just sitting there watching one play after another, and the next play starts and somebody dressed in a baloney costume walks out onto the stage and starts talking. And the other character on stage totally accepts this other character as a walking, talking piece of baloney. And it's that's the moment. What does your brain do with that information? How do you process that scenario? And I love that. And
Well,
so that's my moment.
yeah, well, it's the thing that makes theater so remarkable for me is that these are the kinds of things that can happen in the theater, and they don't really work in movies, because we need everything to be completely real sometimes, you know. And if there's, you know, but in theater, a piece of bologna walks on stage, and if the people on stage accept it, your audience is going to be, well, of course, there's walking, talking baloney. It is completely acceptable, and it's the kind of imagination and creativity that I love in a piece of theater. And quite frankly, it's one of the reasons why this play, we put this play in our catalog, because not only does it have a great title, not only does it have amazing characters, but then it also backs it up with the goods, right? We have a really great play to boot. As we end up here, what's one piece of advice you would give producers who are putting up Baloney Pickle?
I am normally a fan of minimal costuming in productions of my plays. This is a significant exception to that. I feel like the Baloney costume and the Pickle costume, because there is another character later in the play, it is a walking, talking pickle. It's important to try and get those costumes as good as possible. I mean, it shouldn't just be somebody in a reddish-brown shirt and somebody in a green shirt. I don't think that works here. I think we need good costumes to try and sell the weirdness of the situation. For the original production, which was done at, oh boy, I'm blanking. I can't think of the name of the school. The director was a guy named Pat Antonucci, and the tech ed department at his high school, those students built the costumes, and it was a sort of a wire framework with fabric stretched over it for both the Baloney and the Pickle costumes. And they came up with this really great idea for the Baloney, that they cut armholes in the front of the costume. And so depending on how the actor was gesturing, he could put his arms out front or stick his arms out the side of the costumes. There's pictures of it on the Theatrefolk website. I have no idea who came up with that idea, but I thought it was just a brilliant way of working around the potentially very awkward constraints of being in a Baloney costume. So try not to skimp on the costumes if you're doing the play, and try to make them as mobile as possible.
Awesome, that's great.
That's my advice for doing the show.
Yeah, I'm going to save you, Bradley. That premiere production was Parkwood High School in Monroe, North Carolina. Big shout out to them.
Thank you.
And big shout out to the Baloney, the Pickle, the Zombies, and other things I hide from my mother. This is a script that you are going to want to not hide from your mother. You're going to want to pick it up, read it, and do it. Thanks so much for talking to me, Bradley.